Picture this. She rejected you 3 days ago. You've checked your phone 40 times today. You typed out a message, deleted it, typed another one. You're wondering if you should reach out, maybe just to check in, maybe send something funny to remind her you're still here. Here's what you need to understand. Every single instinct you have right now is wrong. And I don't say that to be harsh. I say it because right now, you're about to make the same mistake 90% of men make after rejection. You're about to chase. You're about to prove to her that she was right to reject you. Because here's the truth. Most men never learn. The moment she said no, a clock started ticking in her mind. A psychological timer that only activates when you stop feeding her attention. But if you text her, if you try to explain yourself or stay visible, you reset that clock. You kill the one thing that could bring her back, her fear of losing you for good. This video shows you exactly what's happening in her psychology right now. The 7 signs that she's already reconsidering. And the specific moves that turn rejection into regret. Stay with me. Now, before we go any further, this isn't about playing games or manipulating anyone. This is about understanding what's actually happening psychologically when a woman pulls back, because most dating advice will tell you to just move on or find someone else. And sure, that's one option. But if you're here, you want to understand the truth about why women come back after rejection. Here's what most men don't realize. Rejection isn't always about you. Sometimes it's a test. Sometimes it's her own fear. Sometimes it's her way of seeing if you'll become desperate or stay grounded. And understanding that difference is everything. So let's start with what's happening in her mind right now. Because once you see the psychology, everything else makes sense. When a woman rejects you, your brain goes into crisis mode. Suddenly you're replaying every conversation, analyzing every text, looking for where you went wrong. You convince yourself that if you could just explain better, show her more clearly who you are, remind her of the good moments, she'd change her mind. That's the trap 90% of men fall into. Here's what's actually happening. When she rejects you, she's expecting you to react in one of 2 ways. Either you disappear completely, which tells her you were never that interested anyway, or you chase, which tells her you're desperate and she made the right call. Most men choose option 2 without realizing it. They text. They ask to talk. They send the "I just want to understand" message. They like her social media posts. They engineer random run-ins. And every single one of those moves confirms her rejection was correct. Because what she's actually testing is whether you need her validation, whether you can handle losing her, whether you have the emotional strength to walk away. And here's the kicker. The men who pass that test by actually walking away, they're the ones who trigger something in her brain called the regret mechanism. It's a psychological response she doesn't control. But you'll never activate it if you keep trying to convince her. You activate it by becoming the one thing she didn't expect. Someone who doesn't need her back. So here's exactly what we're covering. First, the psychology of why silence triggers her regret. The actual mechanism happening in her brain. Second, the 7 specific signs she's already reconsidering, based on a timeline you can track. Third, what you need to do during no contact to maintain your dignity while increasing the odds she comes back. Fourth, how to respond when she does reach out, because this is where most men blow it. And fifth, the controversial truth that actually guarantees she either comes back for real or you move on to something better. Let's start with the silent psychology. When you stop reaching out to a woman who rejected you, her brain goes through a predictable sequence. And I mean predictable. This happens whether she consciously realizes it or not. Day 1 through 3. Confusion. She notices you're not texting, not liking her posts, not showing up in any way. At first, she might feel relieved. She thinks, good, he got the message. But there's a small part of her that expected you to fight for her. That's what most guys do. So your silence is already creating a question mark. Day 4 through 7. Concern. Now she's noticing the absence more. She might check your profile. She might mention you to a mutual friend. She's wondering if you're okay, if you're mad, if you've moved on. And here's the key. This concern is actually loss aversion kicking in. Loss aversion is a psychological principle that says humans feel the pain of losing something twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining something. When you were pursuing her, she had your attention. Now that it's gone, her brain registers it as a loss, and losses hurt. Day 8 and beyond. Regret activation. This is where the psychology shifts. She starts remembering the good parts, the conversations, the moments where things clicked. She starts questioning her decision. Did I make a mistake? Was I too harsh? Maybe I should have given him more of a chance. And the longer your silence continues, the more this feeling intensifies, because your absence creates a curiosity gap. Her brain needs to know what you're thinking, what you're doing, whether you've forgotten about her. But here's what makes silence so powerful. It shifts the power dynamic. When you were chasing, you were seeking her approval. You needed her to validate you. Now, you've removed yourself from that dynamic entirely. You're not asking for anything. You're not waiting for her response. You've essentially communicated, without saying a word, that you don't need her back. And that drives women crazy. Not in a manipulative way, but in a way that makes them question whether they were the prize or whether you were. Your silence withdraws the validation she was getting from your attention. And women, like everyone, value what might disappear. When you were available, she could take you for granted. When you disappear, you become valuable. This is the regret mechanism. It's not guaranteed to work on everyone, but it works on the women who had genuine interest that got buried under fear, doubt, or testing behavior. But how do you know it's actually working? Here are the 7 signs that tell you she's reconsidering her decision, laid out in the order they typically appear. Sign 1. Social media activity spike. She starts viewing your stories more than usual. Maybe she likes an old post. Maybe she watches your story within minutes of you posting it. This isn't random. She's checking on you. She wants to see what you're up to, whether you seem affected, whether you've moved on. This usually shows up in the first week. Sign 2. Indirect communication attempts. She might text you something random, a meme, a "this reminded me of you" message, or a question that doesn't really need asking. Or she mentions you to mutual friends. She's testing whether the door is still open without directly saying so. This is her way of seeing if you're still receptive without risking direct rejection herself. Sign 3. Emotional or cryptic social media posts. You might see posts about missing someone, quotes about regret, or vague statements about not knowing what you had until it's gone. These aren't always about you, but if they appear within the timeline of your silence, there's a good chance they are. Women process emotions publicly more than men do. This is her processing out loud. Sign 4. Physical proximity seeking. She starts showing up at places she knows you'll be: the gym, the coffee shop, that friend's party. If you have mutual friends, she suddenly becomes more social. This isn't stalking. It's her creating opportunities for accidental run-ins. She wants to see you without having to formally reach out. Sign 5. Jealousy testing. She might mention other guys she's talking to or post photos that could be interpreted as dating content. This is her trying to gauge whether you care, whether you're still emotionally invested. It's actually a good sign if she's doing this, because it means she's thinking about you enough to try to trigger a reaction. Sign 6. Behavior pattern reversal. Remember how she was cold or distant before? Now she's warm again. Her messages are longer. She responds quickly. She's laughing at things that weren't funny before. This is the clearest indicator that her mindset has shifted. The energy you felt at the beginning, it's back. Sign 7. Direct vulnerability. She says it. I've been thinking about us. I might have overreacted. I miss talking to you. This is the big one. If she gets to this point, your silence worked. She's done the internal work to realize she wants you back in her life. But here's the critical part. Just because she reaches out doesn't mean you respond the same way you did before. That's what we're covering next. So what do you actually do during the silence? Because this is where most men either get it completely right or completely blow it. And if you've stuck with me this far, I'm going to give you the framework that separates the men who get her back from the men who stay stuck. First, what not to do. No breadcrumb texts. No just checking in messages. No liking her social media posts, hoping she'll notice. No asking mutual friends about her. No engineering coincidental run-ins. All of that is chasing in disguise. And she'll feel it. Your silence has to be real silence. Complete radio silence for a minimum of 2 weeks. No exceptions. Now, what to do? You improve yourself, not for her, for you. But here's the strategic part. You let that improvement be visible. You post about the gym, the new hobby, the trip you're taking, the book you're reading. You're not doing this to make her jealous. You're doing it because you're actually becoming someone who doesn't need her validation. But the byproduct is that she sees it, and it plants a seed. He's doing fine without me. Maybe better. This is outcome independence. It's not a technique. It's a genuine mindset shift. You act like someone who's moved on, even if part of you hopes she comes back. You build a life that's full enough that her absence doesn't create a void. You date other people if you want to. You focus on your career. You strengthen friendships. You become the kind of man who, if she never comes back, you'll be okay. And ironically, that's exactly what makes her want to come back. The social proof element matters here too. When she sees other people responding to your posts, commenting, engaging, she sees value. She sees that you're not sitting around waiting for her. She sees that if she doesn't reach out, someone else might. And here's the timeline. Give it at least 2 weeks of complete silence. If she reaches out before that, you respond briefly and warmly, but you're not immediately available. You have plans. You're busy. You're not sitting by the phone. Because the frame you're establishing is this: I'm not desperate. I'm not waiting. I'm living my life. If you want back in, you're going to have to meet me where I am now, not where I was when I was chasing. Now, when she does reach out, and if you followed this, there's a strong chance she will. Here's how you handle it. First, timing. Don't respond immediately. Even if you see the message right away, wait a few hours. Wait until the next day if it's not urgent. This isn't about playing games. It's about maintaining the frame you've established. You're a busy person living your life. You're not sitting around waiting for her message. Second, tone. Be warm but not over-eager. If she says, "Hey, how have you been?" you don't write a paragraph. You say, "Been good. Staying busy. How about you?" Keep it light. Keep it short. Don't dive into emotional territory immediately. Let her lead the conversation deeper if she wants to. Third, what not to say. Never ask, "Why are you reaching out?" Don't bring up the rejection. Don't say, "I've missed you," or anything that sounds needy. Don't immediately suggest meeting up. All of that gives away too much power too soon. You're friendly, but you're not desperate for reconnection. Fourth, availability. When she suggests hanging out, you're not immediately free. You have plans this weekend. You're busy Thursday. Maybe next week works. This isn't manipulation. You should actually be busy because you've been building your life. But even if you're not, the message is clear. My time has value. You left. You can't just walk back in like nothing happened. Fifth, watch for red flags. Is she being vague? Is she breadcrumbing? Texting enough to keep you interested but not committing to anything real. If she's genuinely interested in reconnecting, she'll match your energy and want to actually see you. If she's just bored or testing whether you're still an option, you'll feel it. Trust that feeling. The key is this: you respond, but you respond as the new version of yourself, not the guy who was chasing, the guy who walked away. But here's what really guarantees she comes back. Or more importantly, that you're okay if she doesn't. You have to actually become someone worth coming back to. And I don't mean just surface level stuff. I mean real transformation. Start with the physical. Hit the gym consistently. Not because you want to post thirst traps, but because physical improvement changes how you carry yourself. It changes your confidence. It changes how other people respond to you. And she will notice that energy shift even if she never sees a photo. Financial and career growth matters too. Work on your goals. Build your business. Get that promotion. Improve your skill set. When you're focused on building something real, you stop having mental space to obsess over whether she's thinking about you. And ironically, that's when you become most attractive. Strengthen your social circle. Reconnect with friends. Make new ones. Build a life that's rich with relationships and experiences. Because if your world revolved around her, it was too small. Expand it. When she sees, through mutual friends or social media, that you're thriving socially, it triggers something. She realizes you didn't need her to have a full life. This transformation takes time. Real change doesn't happen in 2 weeks. Give yourself 30 to 90 days minimum. That's the timeline where genuine growth becomes visible. And here's the shift. You stop thinking I need her back and start thinking I'm becoming my best version. That mindset change is everything, because the man who needs her back is unattractive. The man who's focused on his own growth, that man becomes magnetic. And this brings us to the hardest truth of all, one that most men resist but need to hear. Here it is. And I know some of you won't want to hear this, but it's the truth. The less you need her back, the more likely she is to come back. And if that sounds like a paradox, good. Because it is. The men who get her back aren't the ones obsessing over every sign. They're not the ones checking her social media 10 times a day. They're not the ones still emotionally attached to the outcome. They're the men who genuinely reached a point where they'd be fine either way. They want her back, sure, but they don't need her back. And she can feel that difference energetically. Because here's what happens when you become outcome independent: you stop performing. You stop trying to be the perfect version of yourself to win her over. You just are yourself. And that authenticity is magnetic. When she comes back and sees that you're not desperate, not waiting, not broken, she realizes what she actually lost. A man who has options. A man who has value. A man who doesn't need her validation. Now, this doesn't mean you fake it. You can't fake outcome independence. She'll sense the performance. This means you actually do the work. You actually build a life that fulfills you. You actually heal. You actually grow. And when you reach that place, here's what's wild. You might not even want her back anymore, because you've become someone who attracts better options. And that realization, that's when you've truly won, whether she comes back or not. So now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had someone come back after you stopped chasing? What signs did you notice? And if you're in this situation right now, you just got rejected and you're trying to figure out your next move, drop a comment below. Tell me what's happening. I read every single one, and I'll respond personally. Because here's the thing. This channel isn't just about one video or one technique. This is about helping men understand female psychology so you stop feeling confused, stop getting played, and start having the relationships you actually want. We're building a community of guys who refuse to chase, who understand their value, and who know how to walk away when necessary. And remember this, your silence isn't weakness. It's not a game. It's a boundary. It's you saying, I'm not going to beg for someone's attention. And when she realizes what she lost, whether it takes 2 weeks or 2 months, you'll already be someone she'd be lucky to have back. If you're watching this, you're already ahead of 90% of men. Stay strong. And I'll see you in the next one.